Hi, everyone. It's great being with you today. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. I hope you all can all bear with me today, just getting over the latest bug my kids brought home from school now that the old viruses are recirculating. So if I have any trouble, I may just have to refill the tea, but otherwise, I think we should have a fun session today. I know Pat was really sorry she couldn't be with you today. She had another family, had a family emergency, but we're going to be using a lot of the scenarios that you all shared about some of the tough situations that you've encountered. So we're really excited to walk through that together. I do want to introduce my co-leads today, Adriana Najbabadi and Madeline Olmos Rodriguez. So if y'all could say quick hello.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Nice to be here.
Hi, good morning. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I look forward to working with you this morning.
Thank you both. Both Adriana and Madeline are also trained a lot of pandemic response specialists on a regular basis. Adriana has 10 years of experience as a health coach, so be sure and tap into some of that experience as you get to talking with her. So let me go ahead and share my screen and let's jump on in today. Can everyone see Golden Gate Bridge, sunset over here? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Perfect. All right. Then I think we're in business. All right. So I think many of you know our center, but for those that don't, we really specialize in identifying, developing, testing, and spreading promising innovations in primary care and within and outside the walls within the public health system as well, and really focus on that quadruple aim that so many of you know, enhancing the experience of the people receiving care and trying to get better health for all and better health equity, reducing the cost of care, and really focusing on the joy and satisfaction of the practice. And I think in the context of the pandemic, that's really also thinking about a lot of the things, your experience of the care that you provide out in the communities right now. And we talked last time a lot around pandemic fatigue and how we might reconnect with our purpose and our meaning in the midst of what's been a really long journey for many of us. We've got our contact information here. We'll share the slides afterward, but want to make sure you know how to contact us. Also, our website has a lot of other resource materials. Today, we're really going to be focusing on de-escalation techniques. We're going to go back and revisit something we talked about last September, but expand its application to a lot of different kinds of scenarios, in particular focus on scenarios that you all have described as being challenging. And then we want to make sure we have some opportunity to practice skills in small group settings. Really quick roadmap for where we're going today. We want to go ahead and do quick introductions over chat. We're going to do just a quick icebreaker over chat, recognizing there are a lot of us in the room. We're going to talk about how we respond to challenging conversations. We're going to review the HERE technique. We'll do a larger group practice and then we'll break out. So I know there are a lot of us today, so rather than do a round robin icebreaker, just want to invite you all to share in the chat your name, the organization you work with, and in keeping with our last session about pandemic response, what is one thing you've done to take care of yourself since our last meeting? Oh, thank you so much, Colleen, for already chiming in the chat around coastside farmers markets. Fabulous. So happy to have you with us. And oh my gosh, I'm so impressed that you're able to join us today despite some of the technological challenges, but thank you for being here. Thank you, Casey from Senior Coastsiders. Meditating every morning. I love it, Casey. That's fabulous. What else are you all doing to take care of yourselves? Who else is in the room? Kirsten's been attending a lot of doctor's appointments. Thank you, Kirsten. Glad you're taking care of yourself in that way. Absolutely. What else are other folks doing to take care of yourselves right now? Sasha, spending time with family to recharge. I love it. Stop stressing about little things like laundry. Michelle, that's fabulous. I want to follow in your footsteps there. Jennifer's been visiting parks with her kids. Diana's been taking your dog for long walks. Wonderful. I think your dog probably appreciates that too. Peter spending time with his daughters, keeping them focused. Zaira hitting the gym and walking the dogs. Alberta's been taking more walks. Oh, I love all this activity. Y'all are getting out there, taking advantage of spring. Khalif's been being active daily. Laura going to the chiropractor and stretching. Fabulous. Georgina, welcome. And tell us a little more about what you've been doing as well to take care of yourself, if you don't mind. Selma's our first time attendees, but she's been going out on hikes. Fabulous. Selma, great to have you with us. And Gloria accepting a retreat and training that was nourishing. Oh my gosh, that sounds glorious. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you. Christina has been focusing on getting better sleep and meditating. Wow, I love it. Vicki has been doing exercise class. Georgina's being active every day. And self-help, oh, there we go. Felix, thank you. So spending time catching up with family and friends. Wonderful. So glad to hear all of this fabulous self-care, doing what you need to re-nourish yourself. Lorelli spending time with family. Thank you all so much. Wonderful. Well, I'm so happy to know that y'all are really, really taking some time to connect with others, to take care of yourselves, to nourish yourselves here. Oh, Brittany's been clocking out. Ah, Brittany, way to go. I love it. Turn off the ringer, really disengage for a little while. I love it. And Colleen sending letters. Oh my gosh, I bet your family and friends love that. And Wordle with your daughter. That sounds so fabulous. Wonderful. Thank you all so much and keep it coming. I think it's always an inspiration to each other to realize all the things we actually love doing, and that really kind of refill us, especially when we're going through some things that may kind of deplete us sometimes. All right, so we're just going to use, we're not going to use polling today, we're going to use emoji polling. So I want to invite you all to just use an emoji. If you were able to attend the HERE training that we did last September, just to get a feel for the room, how many folks in the room were able to do the HERE training? You'll find the emojis, for those of you less familiar, under the reactions, which is usually either on that toolbar or the double dot that's has reactions is one of the options. Okay, Megan was able to come. Anyone else able to attend the HERE training last fall? Okay, senior co-signers. Okay, great, excellent. A few of you. Vicki was able to be there. I remember you, Vicki. Hi. Okay, well, oh good. Alberto, Mary, and Christina. Okay, so a handful of you are able to attend that. Okay, great, fabulous. For those who were not able to, don't worry. We're going to go over it today. For those who are already familiar with us, we're going to go a little bit deeper today. So we'll pull out those skills, dust them off, and try them out in some new situations. Wonderful. All right. And then how many of you were able to, again, just using your emoticons, how many of you were able to attend the pandemic response training we presented last month? How many of you were here with us last month for that? The pandemic fatigue, I think, was our topic of the day. Okay. A few of you. Gloria, good. Oh, good. Excellent. Megan, Jennifer, fabulous. Kenny, Christina, Alberto, good. Okay, wonderful. Excellent. Well, we'll tie this together with that training as well, thinking about both our well-being, how things affect us, and being able to connect with others and understanding what may be driving them to certain kinds of behaviors. All right. Thank you all so much. All right. So let's ground this in a story. So would someone mind reading this out loud for the group?
I'll read it.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Gloria. Go right ahead.
You and your team have worked hard to put together an in-person community event. You have carefully set up the site to ensure physical distancing and have asked attendees to take a COVID test before entering the space. A person arrives at the event after it has already started. They are not wearing a mask and refuse to take a COVID test. When you review the safety protocols, the person becomes agitated and begins to loudly complain that masks are no longer required and they should be allowed to attend the event.
All right. First of all, does this sound familiar to anyone? Has anyone encountered scenarios like this? Yeah, a few nods. Yeah. So let me ask you first, when you all hear this, what feelings does this scenario bring up for you? Feel free to unmute and share or to share in the chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. What feelings does this scenario bring up for you?
Hello, this is Benny from
Hi,
Helpways.
Benny.
Yeah, my first reaction is that was planning carefully done, because this scenario should have been anticipated. So my feeling is that I feel like, the planning was inadequate. So,
So you feel like you should be able to anticipate things like this and not be surprised by them.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And I think that would be ideal. I think it's always great when we can anticipate things. And I think there's probably always going to be a few surprises around the corner too. Well, for in terms of feeling, so Vinny's feeling a little bit unprepared for this. Megan's feeling super uncomfortable. There's stress, desire to leave. Stacy's stressed and frustrated. Yeah. Any other feelings around this? Anything else this brings up for you? Can eye rolls have emoticon? Yep. There you go, Christina. All right. And Christina, when you say eye rolls, tell me like, what's the feeling behind that? Like, what are you feeling when you want to just roll your eyes here?
So I'm thinking, I don't know, it's, here we go again, because it's probably not the first time, and it probably won't be the last.
Mm-hmm. So here we go again, this whole feeling of like, why are we having to do this, rehash this again? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. When you say it was probably not the first time, hasn't been the last, do I detect that you feel like this may be a pattern of behavior for the individual?
Definitely. I think if it's someone coming in like that, this individual would probably act the same at this community event, in the store, wherever it is that they would be asked, in public transportation. It's like wherever it is that they would be asked to wear a mask or comply with whatever regulations have been set up. I would imagine that there would be, and so on this individual's from their perspective, they're probably thinking the same thing. It's like, here we go again, because just as we can anticipate this type of behavior, I think, then I'm sure the individual would have gone through this many times over as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Christina. And actually, Christina, you're taking us exactly where I want to go next, which is to start to imagine what's driving this person's behavior, what they're thinking and feeling right now. And so Christina is saying, wow, maybe this person is also feeling like, oh, here we go again. I'm being asked to do things I shouldn't have to be asked to do. Gloria is actually going the same direction. I see, Gloria, you're also kind of expressing, I feel like I've just encountered a person that's fatigued and does not generally want to be told what to do. So there's some frustration underlying this, right?
Yeah.
What else do you think this person may be feeling right now? And feel free to put in the chat or come off mute, whatever you're most comfortable with. Anger. Need some anger. Where's that anger coming from? Do you feel like this person? Yeah.
Hello,
Yes.
Colleen.
Colleen,
I feel like 50% of the time that person is looking for a confrontation, that they've read the rules, they've seen the signs, they know what they're up against, and they want to project their voice and their opinion and make a scene. And then half the time they're in that other realm, and I feel like they kind of, that they feel like they are actually projecting what good health is, that masks are not healthy for you. They're trying to save these people because of the misinformation that they have. And they want to share that misinformation that they feel is true. And so, yes, that balance of yes, they're in the same boat. We kind of have science on our side. And also it being an event that is potentially, I'm assuming, is private, that they have all the rights whatsoever to refuse service to anybody who is not complying to their guidelines.
Yeah.
And
It's
this
interesting,
person
yeah.
is projecting what they want the guidelines to actually be.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
And so I think you're speaking to a deep set frustration of kind of a feeling of being up against up against something, and you express the idea of someone kind of going and looking for an argument, looking for a fight. That sounds like it really comes from a place not just of what's happening at this particular event in place, but a culmination of frustration over the course of years. And so I'm also, and then the other component I really want to pull out on what Colleen said was this whole sense of even wanting to crusade or like sway, trying to influence other people. Say, you use the word save other people or influence other people to come around to their side. Some great conversation in the chat too, Vicki. I really want to appreciate that comment that, your first reaction is to want to explain, let me just explain it to you. And then feeling like, wow, this isn't really the moment where we can have that conversation. Anger, Christina's saying anger because this has been going on for 2 years, has probably been struggling for 2 years in public and private spaces. Absolutely. So a lot of what we see in a moment of outburst is really a culmination. Marianne, this person may not have all the information where to get affordable services, how to navigate through mandates. And Marianne, part of what I'm hearing there is almost like a sense of powerlessness in certain ways. That Colleen, I'm also hearing in your comment, someone that feels like something's not right and they don't have the power to change it. So they're fighting it. They're just lashing out. Wendy,
I have a question. I have a question,
please,
Rachel.
please, go
Yeah,
right
in the
ahead.
first, in the first place, why would that person not, conform to what the protocols are? So there must be something wrong in him or in her because with all this information going on, the instructions everywhere posted everywhere, and that person is still insist on doing this stuff, insisting on what he wants or she wants to do. So there must be something wrong, with that person. So how do we deal with that, as host of the event? So so that's just my reaction about about this particular person, behaving like that.
Yeah. And so Vinny, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, part of what you're observing is there may actually be kind of some deeper issues and probably things we're not going to fix in the context of a conversation. Is that true to say?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, Vinny. Thank you. Absolutely. People come as complex people out into the world, and our interactions with them are so short in many ways to really be able to dig down and understand what's going on. Wendy, I want to notice what Wendy is saying too, feel disappointed because we're all trying to have in-person events and then you're trying to do things safely and you feel like some people aren't cooperating. I believe we need to ask him or her to leave. You're observing that they have the option to not follow the rules, but your options can be to make sure the other attendees are safe. Absolutely. So it's hard decision, but you may be making a decision that's better for the group, even though it means an uncomfortable confrontation with someone. Absolutely. And Gloria, frustration has no outlet, especially a healthy outlet. Absolutely. I would agree with all of those things. So let me just ask you this now that we've thought a little bit, just process for a moment what's going on inside us, what we think may be going on with this individual. I want to invite you to think about, just get someone in your mind for a moment. Think about someone who's really good at diffusing tense situations, or think of a time when you saw really good de-escalation in practice. So just think about that person or that moment in your mind. What did that person do to calm the situation, to bring down the temperature? In what ways did they drain some of the tension from the conversation? So again, feel free to share, come off mute and share, or to share in chat as you're most comfortable. Jennifer saying listening. Yeah. Acknowledging the other person's feelings, taking the person aside to more private area. Empathy and compassion, maintaining a level tone of voice. Great. Section's saying something really interesting, slowing down the pace of conversation, speaking slowly in a deeper voice. Gloria, I do believe in listening and asking questions. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Gloria. Ceci is talking about empathy and neutrality. But what else? What else have you observed in those who are really good at de-escalation or diffusing situations? What do they seem to do that works, or what do they seem to embody? Christina's saying we're using reflective listening. Yeah, tell us a little more about that, Christina.
So what this means to me is how we're trying to tap into how that person is feeling, and then being able to reflect back to them something like, I can tell that this is really frustrating for you. Just kind of being able to mirror back to them so that they can understand that you are trying to be empathetic and just put yourself in their shoes.
Fabulous.
I like that.
Thank you so much. I
Using
love
the words that everyone wants to hear.
Well, and I think, Christina, when you bring up this idea of reflective listening, when someone kind of paraphrases back what we've said, there's something that's profoundly kind of validating about that. Someone really listened to me. They're not just arguing with me, they actually listened to me. You're also saying they're like almost the idea of calling out what the feelings are behind it, and that acknowledging the situation is frustrating for them.
Sometimes that's really all a person needs, because if they feel heard, then that might diffuse the situation. Not always, but if they feel like you understand where it is that they're coming from, that might be enough to diffuse the situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Christina. Phil's saying respectfully providing some options to move forward. And I love, Phil, that you just said options. Providing some multiple paths, letting them be involved in that decision. Vicky's saying good listening techniques, no judgment, empathetic, using I techniques, invalidating their perception, but inviting them to follow the protocol in the place and time. Right, thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate those observations. Are these easy things to do in the moment when you're having this moment of confrontation with someone? Is that easy for you to do? Did the crickets mean it's like totally easy for all of you, right? You got this down, no problem. Send me in, let me be the person to calm this person down. Is it hard for anyone? Give me an emoticon, something else. Anyone struggle with this? Yeah, a little bit. You know, most of us do have, some of you, when we talked about how we were feeling earlier, when we heard the scenario, some of you described some components of that fight or flight response. One of you said, I just want to get out of there, which is exactly how I feel in a conflict. I just want to get out of there. And for some people, it's that desire to fight it out, to argue, things like that. Those are natural responses to conflict. So all of the stuff you all have just described in the chat is the opposite of fight or flight, right? That's not easy. We're saying we want to get out of there or start fighting. And instead, we're going to make ourselves slow it down, engage, listen, invite. Is that easy? No. Jennifer, at least, is saying, no, maybe not totally easy. Yeah. So I think what we want to talk about is how to do that. And we want to give you some tools to try that out, acknowledging that it's not natural for many of us. And I also want to acknowledge something else from the outset. It doesn't matter what kind of tool you use. You may not fix every situation. You may not calm this person down and they put on their mask and they take their COVID test and they take part in the situation, right? But it is a compassionate way to engage with people. And that's what we want to focus on in our session today. So a few of the things you all have already alluded to that often come up are this idea of kind of maintaining composure, or confidence. Acknowledging that the frustration probably goes beyond us. It's rarely personal. Focusing on that calm, gentle tone of voice. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize everyone was responding in the chat while I was like, oh, there's crickets here, and you all were all talking in the chat. I'm sorry about that. Oh, these are fantastic, fantastic observations. That some of you have a lot of experience in conflict resolution. Fantastic, but it's hard to maintain calm when someone else is agitated. Absolutely. So really, like, taking in the waves of feeling and then projecting that calmness is one of the hardest things in the world. Absolutely. A lot of you talked in when you talked about your observation of people who are good at managing conflict, about being supportive, about being reflective, really acknowledging where someone is, being able to provide guidance without getting into an argument, getting creative about how to respond to people's needs. And then maybe most importantly, and one place where we're going to start today, is this idea of expressing empathy, acknowledging the person's viewpoint. Remembering it's not necessary to agree with them. I thank you, Marion, for that idea of being able to give alternative options. So if the main course, that I think someone else alluded to this earlier, so if the main where we want to take someone is not where they want to go, being able to give them some other options for what else we could offer. All right, so many of you remember, for those of you who are part of our training in September, you may remember the HEAR technique, but I want to introduce that again because it's what we're going to use to delve in and try to practice. And the HEAR technique is really just one of those tools for those of us who are in fight or flight mode, who are not good with conflict. It's a tool to be able to help us walk through the steps to turn down the temperature on the conversation and to connect with someone in a hard moment. Oh, excuse me. So the HEAR technique stands for hear, express gratitude, ask and answer, and respond. And you're going to recognize in this a lot of the things that you all were just talking about. The number one, very first thing is about hearing, and hearing them deeply, understanding what they feel deeply, about asking open-ended questions to invite them to share their thoughts and feelings, and listening carefully and reflecting back what they're describing in terms of their feelings or in terms of their what they're telling us, the content of what they're saying. Now, actually, before we even enter into the HEAR, one of you mentioned something really important earlier, which is that a lot of this kind of like connection conversation is not going to work terribly well in a public argument. So you're exactly right. Whenever possible, you kind of want to be able to move over to the side in such a way that you can really have kind of a more one-on-one experience. And that itself may be difficult to do if someone really is wanting to vent. But it's that one-on-one space where you're going to have much better moment for connection. So we want to hear, we want to express gratitude. And by that, I mean, just, if nothing else, just thanking them for sharing their thoughts and concerns. I think that it's much more difficult to connect with someone who is bottling it up and refusing to share how they feel than it is to connect with someone who's sharing raw, messy feelings. So when someone does share those raw, messy feelings, I think we can view that as a gift. Or we can express gratitude for whatever else they're doing. If they're saying, I don't want to take that test, I'm wearing my mask anyway. Let's start by thanking them for wearing the mask. Whatever it is that they're doing, let's express gratitude for that. A stands for ask and answer. We might be asking how we can help. We might be providing some information. And when we talk about people who are in the stage of ambivalence, like we were talking about last fall, this is where we also can ask about pros and cons to help people think about weighing a decision around something like vaccination, for example. And only when we reach the R do we do what some people wanted to do up front, which is to respond. But instead of responding in argument, we're going to respond by asking permission to share new information or by summarizing what we're hearing here. Now, is it for any of you who really like to just get in and say like, no, this is the, you don't understand all the information. Is it a little bit hard to have to wait 4 steps to get to R? Because for some people, it really is. It's really tough that we're spending all that time connecting, listening, asking questions, thanking people, asking them some more questions about what they think before we ever get to the point of offering new information. Why is it that we're trying to wait until the R to offer new information? Any thoughts?
Well, I think you do have to respond to something you hear or acknowledge the presence and everything that you see and hear. You have to acknowledge. That's kind of a response in a way.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that it's still kind of that welcoming space in which you and I, you know, and then if somebody's in a crowded area, definitely separate yourself or move to a more area where we're respecting that space, because it's a more how do you say, it's a more it's a necessary quiet space and safe space as well.
And I also want to acknowledge what Christina's saying in the chat. And I think that is important, that if you are kind of pulling someone out of a public situation to get a one-on-one with them, you also do want to keep safety in mind. If you have concerns about that, that's a top priority. Absolutely. I agree with that as well. And I think I want to thank Colleen that this first part of the HERE technique is where the de-escalation starts to happen. In fact, I really encourage people that as long as you feel like the temperature is really high, stay in the HE, stay in the HEA for a while. Once someone starts most people start to blow out a lot of that frustration and anger after talking it out, after being heard for a little while. And only then are you really in a good place to say, you know, I hear you, you know, you're just deeply concerned about this issue. Would it be okay if I share some information for you to consider about that? So let's look at how this might play out in practice. So here, we're often saying things like, could you tell me more about your concerns? Let me be sure I understand correctly. It sounds like you're saying this, or sounds like you're feeling this. Is that right? When we express gratitude, we might be saying, I appreciate you sharing that with me. I appreciate you coming today and showing up to this. Thank you so much for trying to be here. A is about ask and answer. So we might ask, how is it that I can help? If a person's trying to make a tough choice, you might also say, you know, what would be the bad things for you about getting a booster? And on the other hand, what would be the good things about getting a booster? Helping them articulate and put out there what they're feeling. And then finally, for the R, it's really reflecting, once again, pulling it all together in the summary. Let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. And then offering new information. Would it be okay for me to share some information about this for you to think about? It may also be what one of you mentioned earlier. This may also be where we lay out some of the options. You know, there are a few different options you have right now. I realize this isn't, you know, not really happy about the rules. And I understand that. Want to make sure you know what your options are right now and find out what's best for you. So let's walk through this using a scenario. So I'm going to ask you all to get ready to jump in and chat or come off mute and share your ideas. I want you to keep the HERE technique in mind as we walk through this scenario. Could I ask someone to read this scenario? Anyone willing to jump in? Jennifer, go right ahead. Thank you so much.
Alicia is the parent of Quinn, who is in the 3rd grade. You ask Alicia if they are interested in signing Quinn up for a vaccine appointment. Alicia hesitates before responding. No, I don't think so, but thank you for asking.
All right. So Any thoughts about how Alicia might be feeling here? Anyone in the group?
Still fear.
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 Yeah. Why fear, Gloria?
Well, there seems to be a sense that we're putting something into a child's body that they don't know anything about.
Mhm,
It's protection kind of thing in a way.
mhm.
Based on
thank you.
so much of the information that people are surrounded by.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. And I see Gloria Gonzalez also has her hand up. Please go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yes, so the question is how might Alicia be feeling? You seem
Yeah.
here, but my first thought was why would it be appropriate to be curious and ask her and maybe not assume, so that we might be able to understand where she's coming from and ask if she would be willing to be open to information.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you went to that, asking a question there. Absolutely. So really, tell me what is it that you might ask, Gloria? What is a question you might ask to dig deeper?
Alicia,
Okay.
no, this is good. Alicia, I'm just curious if you're willing to share why you are not interested at this time.
Yes, what a wonderful open way to ask that question. I love it. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much, Gloria. And you made it very, very, very inviting, but also, gave her a way out if she just really doesn't feel comfortable talking. I like that. In the chat, I see uncertain, maybe considering it. So you kind of hear a little bit of uncertainty there as well. I think you might be right. Christina's observing that she may not be vaccinated herself, so she might even be more worried about her child. Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about the HERE technique, then Gloria wanted to kind of go in and start asking questions to understand more. Fabulous response. That's a great application of the H in the HERE technique. So Alicia says, I'm not against the vaccines. I'm vaccinated. I just don't know about getting my kid vaccinated. It really worries me. All right, so what would you say next?
I may ask her what her worry is, and if there is any questions that she might have had that you could help understand, because a lot of times we don't have enough information to make a decision, and especially when it comes to our children, we're even more concerned.
Great observation. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I love that. And I think it's such a good to think about the idea that this may come from a place of being extra protective of our kids. Yeah, I love that. And I actually think that also even gives you an opportunity for a moment of appreciation there too. That I appreciate that you really are thinking carefully about how to protect your kids. Yeah. Christina's observing, inviting, do you have questions to see if I could answer those for you, or what are your concerns? Absolutely. What else is coming to people's mind? What else would you want to say here? Colleen saying I might ask her what was her experience when she received the vaccine. Great. That would be really good information to have. Yeah. Is she concerned about the side effects, or is it more like other stuff she's heard? It would help us unravel that. Wonderful. What else would you all say or ask here? But here you all wanting to invite her to share a little bit more. So let's do that.
Yeah, this is Benny. Yeah, in
Benny?
the scenario, it says that it really worries me, she says. So we could proceed from there, pick up from the worry, ask more questions, detailed questions about the worries of the parent or Alicia, for the child to get the vaccines.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
I think that's a great approach. Wendy's also observing we could ask if she's talked about that with her son. Absolutely. So we do ask Alicia, what is it that worries you? And Alicia says this: I worry about what's in it and if it can cause long-term effects. What if she wants to have kids of her own someday? And what about all those kids who developed heart problems? All right, so what would you say next? Alicia shared some reasons she's concerned about this. What might you do next?
Well, this is an area in which pretty much across there's so much information, the more equipped we are to provide facts and sources, because, you know, we want to provide accurate information, and maybe the next thing I would ask, what have you heard? But we have to be prepared to respond with facts.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. So you're
pediatricians are talking a lot about the vaccine. So
yeah. So I hear, Gloria, one of the concerns in your mind is really this idea of like, well, I need to be prepared with some answers to offer her. Yeah. Do you feel prepared right now?
Somewhat prepared, but not to the degree, because I work mostly with adults, but I do try to prepare myself as it relates to the fact that there has been support from pediatrics, availability through clinics, information, information about protecting, and we are talking family are very protective of their children, and we want our children to be protected, but also protected from others as well. So there's just so much there.
Absolutely. So I love,
I would really say also, I would just say I trust that, I trust what you think, and if that's what you think, that's also okay, and it is your decision. Yeah, I feel like respecting what this person is saying and wanting for their kids is that would be important in my speech.
Thank you so much, Ophelie. Is it Ophelie? Did I pronounce your name correctly?
It's Ophelie.
Ophelie, thank you for correcting me. Thank you. That was great observation. I wonder, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
if we try to diagnose the behavior or the attitude of the mother, is that in the first place, she's a risk averter. She doesn't want risk. But in this scenario now, there's a tendency that she's willing to take some risk now, because she's asking question about the effects, because if she's convinced about the positive effects or long-term effects, then she might. So the response to that would be, using relational stories or examples like, this is the first time that we introduce vaccines to kids. We have all those several vaccines. The same scenarios have been asked by parents before, but so I mean, just to convince, by giving science-based information.
Thank you so much, Vinny. So let me just break down some of what I'm hearing and seeing in the chat. A lot of you are thinking about, wow, how can I provide some good, solid information to Alicia so that she can make a good decision for Quinn? And that's really important. That's done in the R. So I want to back us up to the A for a moment and think about what else we might do before we jump in to provide some information. The other thing I want to acknowledge is Ophelie just brought up a really great idea about really acknowledging. First of all, you want to acknowledge, thank you so much for, wanting to protect your kids. I really respect that impulse. And also you said, ultimately, the decision is going to be yours. So really acknowledging who is the decision maker here. I'm not going to try to push you into this, but and at the same time, you have an opportunity to offer some new information to help parents make that decision. So on one hand, we don't want to argue with someone. On the other hand, we do want to offer some new information and resources. Now let's talk, we'll come back to the content of this and some of If you all want to, we can talk through more of what we might say. And some of you are also talking about, sources of information. What is a trusted source of information for Alicia? Oh my gosh, there's so much richness in the chat. Thank you all so much. Acknowledging, appreciating her concerns, offering to share more. But let me come back to the A for just a moment. So right now, remember, when we think about someone making a decision, most people have a balance scale. They have the reasons they want to do something, the reasons they don't want to do something. Right now, what do we know on that balance scale? Which side do we know about?
The negative, the con.
The negative. Yeah, exactly right. So we know that on one side, on one hand, she's concerned about long-term effects, concerned about what she's heard about heart problems. What do we know about her reasons to want to get a vaccine? Not so much. So how would we ask that? What's a way we can ask about that? Go
Well,
ahead.
She is vaccinated. So maybe ask her, like someone had said before, her experience. What were some of the reasons why she was vaccinated? And kind of help her see the pros in getting vaccinated for herself and her child.
Fabulous. I think that's a great angle. Absolutely. Ask more about some of her reasons for choosing to get vaccinated.
That's a great one. The other one would be have you spoken to her provider, her pediatrician?
Absolutely. So certainly we know pediatricians are one of the most trusted sources of information. So that's absolutely an option. Let me also propose something that sounds a little wild and has surprising impact in practice. We could ask her. It sounds like you're concerned about long-term effects and think what you've heard about heart problems. Is there anything that would be good about getting your child vaccinated? My experience is that this is what people are most worried about doing because they're afraid there's going to be nothing on that side of the balance scale. And for most of us, we have something on both sides. So I want to challenge you and encourage you when you are talking to someone about decision making, have the courage to ask them about both sides. What would be bad about it? What would be good about it? You'll learn a lot about that person really quickly.
Or I would even go to the extent of asking about the trade-off for not taking the vaccine and versus taking the vaccine, So
about the what for? Say that again.
I would even ask about the trade-off.
The trade-off.
Yeah, between
so
vaccinated
you really,
and unvaccinated, person. So
Very
so that
good.
would wake up the mom.
Yeah, and so knowing how people are thinking about that balance scale is really great before you offer some new information and thinking about the trade-off, if you will. So this is what Alicia says. Alicia says, well, I know a lot of her classmates are getting the vaccine and they're planning sleepovers. I would really hate for her to miss out. Plus, she's really close to her cousin Gustavo. He has disabilities and is at high risk, so we haven't been able to spend time with him for a while now. I know she misses him a lot. So she's got some things on both sides of her balance scale. So thinking through, again, the HERE technique, what would you say next? Any thoughts about this last step of R? Here, how would you want to respond?
So I don't know, how about something like how would you feel about having your daughter being able to see Gustavo more often, or something like that, because obviously she's hedging with the vaccine, but that's on the plus side. Definitely, she's thinking of, wow, if my daughter gets the vaccine, then she'd be able to hang out with her cousin, and she misses him.
Yeah. So we could find out more about that relationship, absolutely, and connect with her on that.
Well,
think, Gloria,
the variable, the variants and their transmittability is something that's that we are hearing more and more, and
yeah,
we don't know how the variants are going to be how, you know, what's going to happen as they mutate, you know.
yeah.
So the protection is at different levels.
So
See
you're
what
thinking,
happens.
Gloria, there may be some additional information that would be really helpful for her as she thinks about how to consider the risk of getting COVID versus the risk of vaccination. Some new information she may not know.
It's an opportunity for an education.
And that is where we are in the HERE technique. We're at the R. This is our opportunity to share some new information. That's exactly where we want to go with this.
And now we can build from you know, her point that she's after the welfare or you know, the development of the daughter, because she wants the daughter to socialize.
Yeah.
But there's a requirement for her not to socialize through you know, by taking the vaccine. So that would be a good you know, entry point of, you know, for us to tell Alicia that, you know, it is necessary for, you know, for the child to, you know, to have the
Good
vaccine.
point.
Yeah.
One thing that in the R I really love to do is to summarize what we have already heard someone say. On one hand, you're concerned about long-term effects and what you've heard about heart problems. On the other hand, it sounds like this would really enable your daughter to be part of these sleepovers and to see your cousin. Am I hearing that right? And then we want to hone in on what it is that we can really offer new information on. So often I really encourage people, if someone hasn't asked our opinion, to ask permission. Would it be okay if I share some information about what we know about long-term effects and heart problems so that you can think about what's best for Quinn? And out of curiosity, what do you all know about these, the heart problems that we hear people talk about? What do we know about that? It's made news.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jennifer. What were you saying? I think you're on mute.
Well, I know that there was some talk about blood clots and about effects to the heart. There's been like a range of things, but I feel like there's been more pros that has been shared than cons, but with every vaccination, like the chickenpox, the polio, these are all, you know, with every vaccine, there's pros and cons. And there's certain vaccines that our children need for school. So as far as just, you know, being empathetic and reminding them that this is, you know, to help more than hurt, and just listening, right? Like we talked about, just listening to her concerns and being empathetic, that will hopefully help her and provide. Sometimes people are visual, so they want to, you know, read more up on it, or offering them websites that they can go to get more information, because sometimes just a person telling them they want to actually see the data themselves or to research it more. So you can always offer more resources that we have online.
Absolutely.
But just the fact that people with heart disease have not been able to resist getting over the infection, and so the level of people dying, including children. The numbers, we know the numbers are not as great as the adults and the elders, but it still has happened, and we can acknowledge that. But the fact that it does impact the heart, that's pretty well known.
For COVID itself.
For COVID itself.
Yeah. So just a couple of really quick talking points, and really encourage you all to you know, talk more. I think in Colleen, I see your hand raised there, as well as Christina. go to the two of you first, and then let me wrap up this discussion. Go ahead, Colleen, first. What were you thinking about?
I was just thinking about the situation itself. I don't have enough
Yeah.
factual information to back up anything on that specific subject.
Mhm.
And if depending on time constraints, I would either offer to, and also resources that maybe their ability to get resources or not, I would ask, either are you open to giving me your email, or I can give you my email and I can send you more information, or we can look it up together and
Yeah.
try and find some information that might be helpful. Just because, and I usually always, if anybody asks questions that I am not sure of the answer, I always reference the CDC. Say,
Absolutely.
the CDC is a great site to look these things up, and because I do not have the answer for you, or I think I might, but I don't necessarily, I try and be honest with that, and that it's okay to not know the information and to tell these people that are asking questions.
Colleen, I absolutely love that. I think one of the hardest things we learn sometimes is to say, I don't know. What a wonderful response. I don't know, and let's find out together. I don't know, and here are some potential trusted sources. Fabulous response. Thank you, Colleen. Christina, what are you thinking about?
So I'm thinking back to what Vinny said about preparation. So in anticipation, I was thinking that I'd like to have two other people in my back pocket. I would like to be able to say, oh, here, have you met Anna? Anna has a child in third grade too, and she was concerned about taking the vaccine. Would you like to speak to her? And you just to kind of open that door, because then it would be, since I don't have a third grader, then here's a real live other parent that has a third grader who's my volunteer at the vaccine, who's doing registration or whatever. And then I know that some of the clinics have had the Ask a Doc. What a great opportunity, especially at a kid's vaccine clinic, to be able to have a doctor there. So if somebody has medical concerns, because at first I was thinking, oh, have you talked to a pediatrician about this? And obviously that's not the way that the question should be asked, because it's you want it to be an open-ended question. But if there's a pediatrician that's there, a doctor that's there, a medical provider that would be able to answer those, that's how I'm thinking I would like to be, like, ultra prepared.
Fabulous. I love it, Christine. Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, it's great for us to get more information. More than happy to talk about these particular concerns in the rest of our session as well. But I think the really important information is this idea of being able to connect them or help them think about who they want to talk it through with. So, and knowing we don't have to have all the answers to engage with them. Fabulous. Thank you all so much. So I actually want to go ahead and move us on, because I do want to make sure we have some time for practice. You've noticed we've taken two very different kinds of scenarios so far. We've had one that's really about a moment of confrontation in an event, and the other that's about someone struggling over a decision or thinking about a decision around vaccination. And we use the HERE technique. We talked about the HERE technique as it applies to both. Is really what we're thinking about is a way when there are heightened emotions, when there is uncertainty or defensiveness or a range of other feelings, including frustration or anger, how is it that we slow the conversation down, that we cool off the temperature, and that we take the moment to connect before we try to share something new? That's what we really want to focus on in these small group breakouts. So I want to just check in. I think that Kirsten, were you able to send out the learner guide to everyone on this call?
Yes, everyone should receive a copy in their email.
Fabulous.
You can reach out.
And if you don't have it, don't worry about it, because it's not, we can actually do this even without that. We're going to go ahead and go into small group breakouts and practice this. And you have, again, a couple of different kinds of scenarios. The person you're going to be speaking to is going to be one of your facilitators. So Madeline and Adriana will be in one room, I'll be in the other room. And we'll go ahead and try out some of these techniques and scenarios. Now, there are a couple of things that I want to share in advance. You all have magic powers in the context of these small group breakouts. You can pause the conversation. You can rewind the conversation and go backward and say, like, let me try this. It didn't sound the way I wanted it to sound. Let me try it again. And you can phone a friend. So if you get totally stuck and you don't know what to do with the situation, you can ask for help from the rest of your group to jump in and give you a hand. How does that sound to this group? Magic powers good? All right. All right, we're good with magic powers. All right. All right. Oh, here we go. We got our second group back. Fabulous. Welcome back. So let me ask the other group, which scenario did you all end up tackling in your breakout?
We ended up tackling scenario 1 and barely getting to scenario 2, just like the first 2 steps, here and express gratitude, but we did tackle scenario 1.
Fabulous. Yeah, we actually did the same one. So it sounds like that one had resonance right now with the groups. So would love to hear some takeaways that people have from walking through that conversation and thinking about how to connect with someone who's feeling very anxious at the time. Any thoughts? Did it feel similar to some of what you're experiencing right now?
Yes, for me, it was similar to what the experiences that we are going through now with clients. Our clients are primarily low income, non or limited English speaking, immigrant, and levels of poverty. I think that low income that are very interested in survival. So when we approach an elder and that is going into isolation, and we make that check-in call. So the call, it was a call. It was not a door knock. Well, maybe it was a door knocking. I think I started with the door knocking and continued having a conversation about how they were feeling. And so I think the discussion was very good because there are different things that actions that people wanted to take in terms of next step, but we were mindful of that. We needed to connect, reinforce the importance of connection, and acknowledging that depression and isolation is not a good place to be, and as time goes by, it's a harder place to come out of. So making a plan of action to continue connection was a supportive way to handle that situation.
Thank you, Gloria. I appreciate that. Thank you, Laura, for the observation in the chat of hearing all the ways that people think of to address the HERE steps, the HEA steps. Seems like there's always more time and effort that can be invested in those steps relative to what we might do at default. Now, what is our tendency? So often when we hear a scenario like this one of someone being very isolated, what do many of us do in response? What's our first impulse?
To react.
To react in what way, Alberto?
Just it depends on the subject, right? Sometimes defensively, sometimes, with a more kinder approach, depending on how you're being approached, right? But my thing is, like, what I wanted to add to this is that we need to understand also that, this takes a while to really do, because we do tend to react first instead of really following these HEA steps, because they're not, at least for me, they don't seem it wouldn't be the first step that I would do, right? I would want to respond, but you have to kind of like take a breath and then think about, hey, they're sharing with you. Appreciate that, right? Ask questions and be and sympathize with their position, but also inform, you know, and continue having a conversation, because otherwise we just end up closing conversations that could have been fruitful or productive for them, you know, and for the people they come in contact with.
Thank you so much, Alberto. And actually, that's a perfect place for us to kind of wrap this together. Alberto, I really appreciate your observation that this is contrary to what many of us tend to do. Many of us jump in with recommendations. I suggest you, have you tried? Couldn't you just? So once again, the HERE technique is there to slow us down and say, first ask, appreciate, explore together, and then you're in a much better place to offer something and ask if it's of interest. We took 3 scenarios today, very different scenarios, one of confrontation, one of ambiguity, and one of isolation and anxiety connected with that. And we used one technique to think about how to start to unravel that and connect with people in these different places. So, and all of the scenarios I want to point out came from you all. So thank you all so much for sharing some of your experiences and some of the challenging conversations you all have been having recently. So I think we are at the end of this session, and just want to thank you all for being here today and open it up for any last questions that folks may have. Also want to acknowledge we're right at almost at noon. So for those of you who need to jump off the line, we certainly understand, and also want to just, Kirsten or others, make sure you all don't have any closing comments before we do that.
Just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel, and to your co-facilitators, Madeline and Adriana. This was a really informative and helpful session. I hope folks got a lot out of it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.